to all of you, my dear students. I'm Sean Xavier Alquilita. So I'll be going to tackle on science, technology, and the human condition. So here, there are two lessons that we're going to deal with here. It's talking about the human flourishing and the technology as the way of revealing. And the second one is the good life and when technology and humanity cross. Okay, so let's go first with the first part. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, students would be able to identify different concepts of human flourishing, determine the development of scientific method and validity of science, and to critique human flourishing vis-a-vis progress of science and technology to be able to define for themselves the meaning of a good life. Okay, so literally, when we say about human flourishing, that is on the Greek term that is eudaimonia, no? So that is the term coined by philosopher Aristotle. So eudaimonia means a good-spirited person or something has to do with excellence of character. So this is a term described by Aristotle as the pinnacle of happiness, the pinnacle of humanity that is attainable to humans in the practice of the habit of doing good, which is virtue. No? So when the Western civilization tends to be more focused on the individual, based on the individual's values, rather than his belief that the state is greater than him. No? So the East are more community centric. Community takes the highest regard that the individual should sacrifice himself for the sake of the society. So there's a great difference between the Westerns and the Easterns with regards to the culture, no? Because the Westerns tend to be individualistic. That's why it's focused on the individual. But the Eastern culture, we are more community centered, no? So we live among ourselves towards our to our neighbors. We tend to reach out to others, but unlike the Westerns, they tend to be individualistic. So that's one of the uh, it's one of the key considerations with regards to the differences of their character as well as the differences of their culture. Okay, so every discovery, innovation, and success contributes to our pool of human knowledge. Humans' perpetual need to locate himself in the world by finding proofs to trace evolution. The end goals of both science and technology and human flourishing are related. So, in that, the good is inherently related to the truth. So, in philosophy, good, truth, and beautiful are just the same thing. Yeah. So, our two concepts about science, which ventures its claim in or on truth.
Imagine a person who always knows what to say, who can diffuse a tense situation, deliver tough news gracefully, is confident without being arrogant, brave but not reckless, generous but never extravagant. This is the type of person that everybody wants to be around and to be like. Someone who seems to have mastered the art of being a person. This may sound like an impossible feat, but Aristotle believed that while rare, these people do exist, and they are what we should all aspire to be. Virtuous. And there's a whole moral theory based on this idea of virtue. But unlike most of the moral theories we've discussed, virtue theory doesn't spend a lot of time telling you what to do. There's no categorical imperative or principle of utility. Instead, virtue theory is all about character. Rather than saying follow these rules so that you can be a good person, Aristotle and other virtue theorists reasoned that if we can just focus on being good people, the right actions will follow effortlessly. Become a good person and you will do good things. No rule book needed. So why should you become a virtuous person? Because eudaimonia. Virtue theory reflects the ancient assumption that humans have a fixed nature, an essence, and that the way we flourish is by adhering to that nature. Aristotle described this in terms of what he called proper functioning. Everything has a function, and a thing is good to the extent that it fulfills its function and bad to the extent that it doesn't. This is easy to see in objects created by humans. A function of a knife is to cut, so a dull knife is a bad knife. And a function of a flower is to grow and reproduce, so a flower that doesn't grow is just bad at being a flower. And the same goes for humans. We're animals, so all the stuff that would indicate proper functioning for an animal holds true for us as well. We need to grow and be healthy and fertile. But we're also the rational animal and a social animal, so our function also involves using reason and getting along with our pack. Now you might notice that some of this sounds a lot like parts of natural law theory, Aquinas' theory that God made us with the tools we need to know what's good. Well, Aristotle had a strong influence on Thomas Aquinas, so part of Aristotle's thoughts on virtue theory ended up in natural law theory. But for Aristotle, this isn't about God's plan, it's just about nature. Aristotle argued that nature has built into us the desire to be virtuous, in the same way that acorns are built with the drive to become oak trees. But what exactly does it mean to be virtuous? Aristotle said that having virtue just means doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, in the right amount toward the right people. Which sort of sounds like Aristotle saying exactly nothing. I mean, how vague can you be? But according to Aristotle, there's no need to be specific because if you're virtuous, you know what to do all the time. You know how to handle yourself and how to get along with others. You have good judgment. You can read a room and you know what's right and when. Aristotle understood virtue as a set of robust character traits that, once developed, will lead to predictably good behavior. You can think of virtue as the midpoint between two extremes, which Aristotle called vices. Virtue is just the right amount, the sweet spot between the extreme of excess and the extreme of deficiency. And this sweet spot is known as the golden mean. So let's take a look at some particular virtues, starting with courage. What is courage? To take a closer look at this, let's head to the thought bubble for some flash philosophy. Walking home from a movie, you see a person being mugged. What is the courageous action for you to take? Your impulse might be to say that a courageous person would run over there and stop the mugging because courage means putting yourself in harm's way for a good cause, right? Well, no. A virtuous person, in the Aristotelian sense, would first take stock of the situation. If you size up the mugger and have a good reason to believe that you could safely intervene, then that's probably the courageous choice. But if you assess the situation and recognize that intervention is likely to mean that both you and the victim will be in danger, the courageous choice is not to intervene, but to call for help instead. According to Aristotle, courage is the midpoint between the extremes of cowardice and recklessness. Cowardice is a deficiency of courage, while recklessness is an excess of courage, and both are bad. Aristotle said that you definitely can have too much of a good thing. So being courageous doesn't mean rushing headlong into danger. A courageous person will assess the situation, they'll know their own abilities, and they'll take action that is right in the particular situation. Part of having courage, he argued, is being able to recognize when, rather than stepping in, you need to find an authority who can handle a situation that's too big for you to tackle alone. Basically, courage is finding the right way to act. And a lot of the time, but not all of the time, that means doing a thing that you know you're capable of, even if doing it scares the pants off of you. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Aristotle thought all virtue works like this. The right action is always a midpoint between extremes. So there is no all or nothing in this theory, even honesty. In this view, honesty is the perfect midpoint between brutal honesty and failing to say things that need to be said. Like, no one needs to be told that they have a big zit on their face. They already know. The virtue of honesty means knowing what needs to be put out there and what you should keep quiet about. And it also means knowing how to deliver hard truths gracefully, how to break bad news gently, or to offer criticism in a way that's constructive rather than soul-crushing. The virtue of generosity works the same way. It avoids the obvious vice of stinginess, but also doesn't give too much. It's not generous to give drugs to an addict, or to buy a round of drinks for everyone in the bar when you need that money for rent. The right amount of generosity means giving when you have it to those who need it. It can mean having the disposition to give just for the heck of it, but it also means realizing when you can't or shouldn't give. So now you can see why Aristotle's definition of virtue was totally vague. Where that golden mean is depends on the situation. But if you have to figure out what virtue is in every situation, how could you possibly ever learn to be virtuous? Aristotle thought there was a lot that you could learn from books, but how to be a good person was not one of them. He said that virtue is a skill, a way of living, and that's something that can only really be learned through experience. Virtue is a kind of knowledge that he called practical wisdom. You might think of it as kind of like street smarts. And the thing about street smarts is that you gotta learn them on the street. But the good news is, you don't have to do it alone. Aristotle said your character is developed through habituation. If you do a virtuous thing over and over again, eventually it will become part of your character. But the way you know what the right thing to do is in the first place is by finding someone who already knows and emulating them. These people who already possess virtue are moral exemplars. And according to this theory, we are built with the ability to recognize them and the desire to emulate them. So you learn virtue by watching it and then doing it. In the beginning, it'll be hard and maybe it'll feel fake because you're just copying someone who's better than you at being a good person. But over time, these actions will become an ingrained part of your character. And eventually, it becomes that robust trait that Aristotle was talking about. It'll just manifest every time you need it. That's when you know you have virtue, fully realized. It becomes effortless. Okay, but why? What's your motivation? What if you have no desire to be the guy who always says the right thing or the lady who always finds the courage when it's needed? Virtue theory says that you should become virtuous because if you are, then you can attain the pinnacle of humanity. It allows you to achieve what's known as eudaimonia. This is a cool Greek word that doesn't have a simple English translation. You might say it means a life well lived. It's sometimes translated as human flourishing. And a life of eudaimonia is a life of striving. It's a life of pushing yourself to your limits and finding success. A eudaimonistic life will be full of the happiness that comes from achieving something really difficult rather than just having it handed to you. But choosing to live a eudaimonistic life means that you're never done improving. You're never to a point where you can just coast. You're constantly setting new goals and working to develop new muscles. Choosing to live life in this way also means you'll face disappointments and failures. Eudaimonia doesn't mean a life of cupcakes and rainbows. It means the sweet pleasure of sinking into bed at the end of an absolutely exhausting day. It's the satisfaction of knowing you've accomplished a lot and that you've pushed yourself to be the very best person you could be. This is morality for Aristotle. It's being the best person you can be, honing your strengths while working on your weaknesses. And for Aristotle, the kind of person who lives like this is the kind of person who will do good things. Today we learned about virtue theory. We studied the golden mean and how it exists as a midpoint between the vices of excess and deficiency. We talked about moral exemplars and the life of eudaimonia that comes with virtuousness. Next time, we're going to consider a tricky little problem in ethics known as moral luck. Crash Course Philosophy is produced in association with PBS Digital Studios. You can head over to their channel.
Okay. So that was the video concerning about Aristotle's view about the eudaimonia. Okay. So let's proceed now with the scientific method, the science of method and results. So what are the steps in scientific method? So there are 6 steps basically, no? So first one is the observation. You're going to observe the phenomena, and then from your observation you're going to determine the problem. So that is why you're going to make the statement of the problem. So the scientific method, that is also a way on how to do your research, especially thesis as well as dissertation. So determine the problem, what bothers you, no? and what specific problem that you're going to tackle. And then after you're going to determine the problem, then you're going to formulate your hypothesis and then reject the null hypothesis. Then after that, you're going to conduct experiment. Then after experimentation, you're going to gather and analyze the results. So you're going to gather the data based from the experiment. And then after gathering of data and analyze the results, then you're going to formulate the conclusion. You're going to formulate the conclusion. Then you're going to make a findings, recommend as well as recommendation. Okay. Okay, so the next one is the verification theory. So this theory has been developed by the Vienna Circle. No? So what is verification theory? It is the idea that proposes that a discipline is science if it can be confirmed or interpreted in the event of the alternative hypothesis being accepted. So here, what does it mean here? That it is a philosophical doctrine, no? That which maintains that only statements are empirically verifiable, or for example verifiable through our senses, through experimentation. These are what we call, these are things that are considered as meaningful or cognitively meaningful, or else they are truths of logic. For example, for example about the law of gravity, no, that the Earth's gravitational constant is 9.81 meters per second squared. So that is based on the experimentation, and that is being verified by many times in the experiment. So that is considered as a verification theory. The next one is falsification theory. So this is developed, or the main proponent of this view is Karl Popper, no? So it asserts that an ideology is not proven to be false and can best explain a phenomenon over alternative theory. So this is somewhat opposite to the Vienna Circle's verification theory. So what does it mean here? That a theory is considered as true if it is not yet proven to be false. Okay? So the best example here is Albert Einstein's concept of energy. So E is equal to mc squared, no? So that theory was not yet given, kumbaga, how can you explain, or how did you be able to make an experimentation, an object that travels the square of the speed of light? And according to Albert Einstein, that energy is equal to a mass of the certain object. For example, this pen. This pen has a mass, and if it travels the square of the speed of light, it is energy. Now, so this is what we call it as falsification theory. So a theory is not yet is considered as true if it is not yet proven to be false. Yeah. So if it travels the square of the speed of light, it is energy. Yeah. So that is what we call it falsification theory. Okay. Okay. So, science as a social endeavor. So, a new school of thought on the proper demarcation criterion of science emerged. So, explores the social dimension of science and effectively technology. So, the new view perpetuates a dimension which generally benefits the society. So, it is through the inventions, it is through the research based on science and technology, the society, the entire society, has been benefited from the product of inventions brought about by science and technology. Okay, so science and results. So people who do not understand science are won over the discipline is able to produce results. So in this particular argument, however, science is not the only discipline which is able to produce results, like religion, luck, and human randomness are some of its contemporaries in the field. For some communities without access to science, they can turn to divination and superstition and still get the same results. Science is not entirely foolproof, such that it is correct 100% of the time. Now, also, we consider science as education, no? So in the Philippines, a large distribution of science high schools can be found, forging competition for aspiring students to undergo rigorous science and mathematics training based on specialized curricula. So, students are preconditioned that the field would later land them paying high jobs or high paying jobs at a lucrative career after graduation. So, basically, moreover on engineering, no? So simply mastering science and technology would be inadequate if we are to say socialize with people or ruminate on our inner selves. So a true eudaimonia recognizes that flourishing requires one to excel. So this is now how the philosophy of Aristotle's view about eudaimonia is being connected to science and technology here, because we need person to excel in his craft. So in various dimensions in his craft, such as linguistic, kinesthetic or kinetic, artistic, as well as socio-civic. So discussion points. So what do you think constitutes human flourishing? So in your own selves, in your own view, what constitutes human flourishing? Were we successful so far in trying to tie down technology with what we conceive as human flourishing? So that will be your assignment to be answered in your Moodle account. Okay, so let's move into the next topic. So technology as a way of revealing. So how the technology reveals itself in time. So this is quite connected with the philosophy of Martin Heidegger about revealing, or aletheia, no? So let's move further. So at the end of this lesson, the student should be able to explain the concept of human condition before science and technology, identify the change that happened in human condition after science and technology, as well as name ways on how technology aided in revealing the truth about the human being. So, what was the condition or human condition before the Common Era? So, here are the points here. So, the Homo erectus, no, have been using fire to cook. Yeah. The next one are the tools made from stone and flints. You know, flints, it's a stone made of magnesium that you can rub them, it can produce fire. Yeah. So that's what use the fire. Use the fire. The next one, the tools, stone as the cutting tool, as well as flints or magnesium stone. People discovered minerals and began forging metalwork. So that's the way how the metals are being developed at that time. Next one is the clothing made from fur, the animal skin. And lastly, people of the time had also painstakingly wrought and hewed said figures in honor of some deity. So the use of sculpture to figure their own gods and to worship that object. So how about in the Common Era, even nowadays, no? So due to the primal need to survive, due to survival, humans were quick to find ways to drive off megafaunas, threatening prospective hunting spot. No? So this is connection with the first and the second point here. The ongoing extinction of several species, both flora and fauna, due to human activity. For example, Cebu City. Cebu City was used to be a forested area before, but eventually, due to human activity, many trees were cut, and the area has become urbanized, no? So that's the reason why that's the reason behind that, no? And because it's been urbanized, we tend to become more busy with our human activity, especially busy, especially some others are going to malls. The area has been cut, trees or the forested area has been cut in order to build an establishment, a building, just like that, no? And moreover, they began to hunt, farm, and produce things with prospect of profit. So that's the reason behind they're going to hunt, farm, and produce things for the sake of money. So when they could not sell products, they used their skills and got compensated for it, bringing forth a specialized group of artisans. And the last one, physical strength, was valued at most, although there appeared to be as many intellectually gifted figures just the same. So what is the essence of technology? So modern humans are reliant on technology in their search for the good life, no? So we rely on technology in search for the good life. So this is the good life is based on today. The good life is based on technology. For example, cellular phones. This one, cellular phone. Yep. So it was built only for communication. It was built only to call for call, and later on, it's built to text messages, to write a text. But before text messaging, There was a pocket bell, there were pagers at that time, but because of the phone as well as text messaging, pagers were already wala na, no? And then later on, of our cameras were already uh, got out because cellular phones, mobile phones have already cameras, and even movies. We can watch our TV. We can watch movie. We can listen to music. We can listen to the radio in our mobile phone. So everything is there, no, in the cellular phone. So because the good life was based on our uh, uh, comfort, no, because we rely based on our own comfort zone. Yeah. So humans are reduced into the amount of productivity so they are able to render during the lifetime. So by too much reliance on technology, humans lose track of things that matter, reducing their surroundings to their economic value. So, for example, because of the existence of technology in education, for example, education. So, most of you here are teachers, future teachers. You should know this, that students nowadays are very relied on their technology, particularly on mobile technology. No? So please don't forget your students that that shall I say, let all the technology pass. If this technology would pass, there are only two things that really remain. Two things that would really remain: your pen and your notes. Your pen and your notes. These are only the two technologies that will left if all of these things, technologies would pass. So that is why note taking is very has a high value even this time. Yeah. So next one, Martin Heidegger. So one of my favorite philosophers, mm, argued that its essence or purpose are being, essence, purpose, and being are different from each other. No, because Martin Heidegger, in his philosophy of technology, that technology is a revealing. No, it reveals itself on time. It is aletheia. No, and also a way of life. So technology can either be perceived as a first and or a means to achieve man's end. That's one. First, as a means to achieve man's end, or second, that which constitutes human activity. So it's either it is only a means towards a certain end. So we use technology for the sake of our own comfort. So just use it as a means, or is technology as the one controlling us, even our human activity? Because I tell you guys that 20 years from now, or even 10 years from now, I can say, class, that sad to say, and this is a uh, shall I say, disadvantage of technology for those who are working in a call center, no, that expect that 10 years or 20 years from now, uh, uh, the people who are working in the call centers will be will be retrenched from their work in replacement of AI technology or artificial intelligence. So expect that time will come that call center companies or call center businesses, or shall I say, will no longer accept human labor. So the human labor is being replaced by the machines or AI technology. Because as I've received the news that BPI and BDO have already bought a new software for their AI technology based on using a call. No? So that's the okay. So the second perspective paints technology in such a way that as each period reveals a particular character regarding man's being. Okay. So lastly, I give you one of the great examples that here in the next slide, that McDonald's have already in one of the places in United States, that McDonald's there's a store, McDonald's doesn't have any human employees. It's generated by robotics. So the next slide, I will show you how the technologies could even take over the human activity. So that will be our expectation in the years to come. Okay, so the next one will be like this. As I've told you, that this one, McDonald's reached record high as it launches a new wave of automation. So this is the news that is being shown in the United States, in Arizona, in one of the places in the United States, that anything inside the store in McDonald's store is driven by robotics technology as well as AI technology. So you can see there are no human employees or workers who are working inside the store. So if you order a food, it's the robot will be the ones to serve you. The way of cooking the food, it's the robots, it's the AI. And the other one here is the artificial intelligence that threatens jobs in the BPO industry. So in the trade department, so said, no, this is based on a CNN Philippines, no, and I guess I can tell you guys that come in 10 to 20 years, I tell you that BPO industry in the Philippines will go down, will bring down due to the AI or artificial intelligence technology. And if you want to know how it works, I will show you on the next slide. So the CEO of Google, in the name of Sundar Pichai, has demonstrated how artificial intelligence using Google Assistant works. So here it is.
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
It turns out a big part of getting things done is making a phone call. We think AI can help with this problem. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Okay. So discussion points. Another question. What would have happened to humankind if technology did not exist? Okay. And the second one is, do you agree with Martin Heidegger on his idea that technology should only be seen as one of the approaches in perceiving the truth? So what are other possible approaches we should consider? Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that is all for our topic. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube page for more videos on STS 101 subjects. So once again, this is Sean Xavier Alquilita, and have a nice day ahead.